Listen, if you only kind of sort of paid attention to tech news last month, you missed it. You missed what is absolutely, without a doubt, the most pivotal 30-day stretch in the entire history of the AI industry. I mean, 30 days. That is literally all it took to just completely rewrite the global tech playbook. So welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack the absolute chaos that was June 2026. We are talking unprecedented financial megadeals, historic government bans, absolute market panic, and this massive quiet shift in global developer power. By the time we wrap this up, you're going to understand exactly what just happened and why the ground beneath the tech industry's biggest names has fundamentally shifted. All right, so here is our roadmap for making sense of this wild month. First, we'll dive into the AI infrastructure money boom. Then we'll look at the government bans and interventions, followed by the market panics. After that, the rise of open-weight models, some major missed deadlines, and finally, the dark patterns being used to manipulate users. It's a packed agenda, for sure, but we're going to bring some real clarity to all this chaos. Okay, starting with part one, the AI infrastructure money boom. We really need to start with week one here, because the sheer amount of money that moved in those first few days is honestly hard to wrap your head around. $84.75 billion, that's with a B. On June 1st, Alphabet announced an equity raise dedicated completely to AI compute infrastructure. Now, initially, this was a staggering $80 billion. But then, literally within 24 hours, it got upsized to $84.75 billion at final pricing. To put that into perspective, this is the largest single equity raise for AI infrastructure by any major tech company ever. Google wasn't politely asking for a seat at the table. They were aggressively buying their way to the absolute front of the line.
And then, on that exact same day, the ecosystem gets hit with another bombshell. Anthropic closed a $65 billion funding round. That massive pile of cash pushed their valuation to an astronomical $965 billion, almost $1 trillion. And why is this such a big deal? Because for the very first time, Anthropic officially overtook OpenAI's valuation. You had heavy hitters like Sequoia, Microsoft, NVIDIA, the Founders Fund, all jumping in, plus a separate $36 billion credit line just to buy Google's custom chips. The entire balance of power basically shifted in a single afternoon.
But hey, this wasn't just a US thing. Over in Europe, SoftBank committed 45 billion euros to build 3.1 gigawatts of AI data center capacity in France. 3.1 gigawatts, that is Europe's largest single AI infrastructure project ever. When you add all these week one announcements together, you're looking at over $200 billion committed just to AI infrastructure. The takeaway here, the AI industry completely stopped acting like a normal tech sector and started operating like a sovereign-scale infrastructure race. Which brings us right to part two, government bans and interventions. Because look, when industries start throwing around sovereign-level money, sovereign governments start stepping in. And in June, they stepped in hard. This timeline is just wild. On June 13th, the U.S. Commerce Department ordered Anthropic to immediately disable Claude Fable 5 and Mythos 5 for every single foreign national on Earth. This was totally unprecedented, the first time a government retroactively banned a commercial AI model using export controls. But Anthropic didn't just take it, they fought back. By mid-June, a California court threw down a preliminary injunction blocking that federal blacklist outright. Then, by June 27th, they reached this weird middle ground where Mythos 5 was restored, but only for critical infrastructure defenders like hospitals and power grids. Oh, and while all this legal drama was happening in the US, Europe's strict EU AI Act hit its 5-week countdown, meaning massive legal consequences are looming right around the corner for healthcare and finance AI. All right, Section 3, the market panics. So put yourself in Wall Street's shoes. How do you react to companies spending hundreds of billions of dollars while the government actively tries to ban their core products? Well, you panic. The turbulence hit the data almost instantly. For the very first time since it basically broke the internet, ChatGPT's global market share actually plummeted below the 50% mark. The undisputed king of the hill was suddenly losing ground fast. And this wasn't happening in a vacuum. This drop coincided perfectly with the single worst trading day for AI stocks on the Nasdaq all year. Investors were literally looking at the math and asking, wait, can all this insane infrastructure spending actually be justified by the money coming in right now? And that exact revenue panic triggered what everyone in the industry is now calling the end of token maxing. For years, developers just chewed through AI tokens without caring about the cost because flat-rate subscriptions covered everything. Well, in June, GitHub Copilot killed its 3-year-old flat-rate pricing and switched to token-based billing. Imagine being a developer and seeing your totally predictable $29 monthly bill randomly explode to $750. Yeah, no way. The whole industry basically pivoted to usage-based pricing at the exact same time, pushing all those massive compute costs straight onto the everyday user. But even with all this panic and pricing drama, the market was still moving at lightning speed. Just 4 days after their historic IPO, SpaceX dropped $60 billion to acquire the AI coding tool Cursor. They literally just used their freshly minted stock to complete the largest acquisition of a venture-backed startup in history. And they did it in a single afternoon. Just incredible velocity. Moving on to part 4, the rise of open-weight models. While all the US tech giants were busy fighting the government, fighting each other, and jacking up prices, there was this much quieter but probably way more important story happening globally. When we look at usage data from Rewrote, which is where tons of developers actually deploy these models, the shift is massive. Forget benchmark hype. We're talking about real-world production. In June, Chinese open-weight models quietly crossed the 60% usage mark. 60%! They are absolutely dominating the platform right now and capturing the global developers who are actually out there building real products.
It's honestly fascinating to see these two geopolitical strategies side by side. On one hand, you've got the US AI sector, which is currently a mess of loud legal battles, desperate billion-dollar fundraisers, and massive price hikes. On the other hand, the Chinese AI sector just spent the entire month quietly dropping incredibly capable free open-weight models. Every single developer who decides to build their app on a Chinese model today is one less developer locked into the American AI ecosystem tomorrow. It is a brilliant, silent takeover of global developer habits.
Let's hit section 5, missed deadlines and unfulfilled promises. You know, sometimes what doesn't happen is just as revealing as what does, especially when an industry is moving this incredibly fast. So, let's look at the scoreboard here. Google promised us Gemini 3.5 Pro in June. Deadline came, deadline went, nothing. OpenAI hyped up 3 new models, Sol, Terra, and Luna, but then got super paranoid after Anthropic's export ban and locked them down to just 20 government-vetted orgs. And xAI's Grok 5, totally MIA, with prediction markets giving it literally a 3% chance of actually dropping. But, and here is the twist, Gemini 2.5 Pro with DeepThink actually sneaks out quietly on June 22nd, and it completely wiped the floor with the competition, posting the highest science and reasoning scores we've ever seen from a public model. Finally, part 6, dark patterns and user manipulation. I want to shift gears here because this one is deeply personal. We've talked about billions of dollars and geopolitical strategies, but this right here, this affects you, the person actually using these tools every day. In June, the Center for Democracy and Technology dropped a totally scathing report. They found 37 different manipulative UI dark patterns baked directly into products like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Replika, you name it. And these aren't just little design oopsies. These interfaces are deliberately engineered to create emotional dependence. They make it practically impossible to delete your account, they completely lie about what the AI can actually do, and they manufacture all this fake urgency to guilt trip you into buying expensive upgrades. While all these billionaires are off fighting over data centers, please don't forget that your attention and your psychology are the real targets here.
So, what does this all mean? When you zoom out and look at all these puzzle pieces from June together, it's pretty clear the industry has fundamentally changed. We're way past the phase of just building cool tech in a lab. Today, it boils down to 3 things: money, power, and control. From the $80 billion cash grabs to the government crackdowns, the open-weight takeover, and even the psychological tricks played on users.
And that brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. The narrative has totally flipped. In May, we were all calling this a tech race. But June was a war. A multi-front war between corporations, governments, rival nations, and increasingly between AI companies and the very users they rely on. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to really think about this. Out of everything we just broke down, which of these escalating conflicts do you think is going to matter the most a year from now? Think about it. Thanks for learning with me today, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.